in all, hope you're doing well. You're having a nice weekend. We're going to look at the net non-coms, which is the banks and institutions. You can alternatively, if you wanted to, look at the commercials, and you can look at the hedge funds in this particular document, which is exclusive for QuasiDB members only. So I do ask, if you are a member of ours, you don't share this document outside and you just use it for personal use, because Kristen's put a lot of work into it. So if you did want to look at hedge fund sentiment or the commercials, then you know, more than welcome. But we'll just look at the big fish and then how they're positioned. So as you know, the Euro USD FX pair was below parity, and it looked quite heavy for a while. And of course, you know, it just surged, and the big fish, the banks and institutions, they bought the Euro FX so much it overtook the USD, and at that point we would have had the buy signal. Okay, so that's how you can use it. Note that we've got an increase from the week prior. This week we've got the Fed interest rate decision, and then the following day the ECB interest rate decision. So while this might look strong for the Euro USD, it can change drastically after this week. Okay, so that this might tick down, this might tick up. But at the moment, you know, the euro is stronger than USD, but I've got a feeling that they might start converging. But we'll have to wait and see. Okay, we probably could argue, probably could do a bit of a pullback, you know, potentially. Let's look at the yen, and then so the yen has increased, a slight increase, -21 from -22. So it doesn't. They could have done with a bigger increase, really, for bullishness. And you note that we haven't got any signals from EJ or EU. Well, we had one there for EU, but there isn't any cross, you know, for some time anyway. We might get UJ potentially, but it's going to take a while for that to cross. And if the yen doesn't pump and it does like this, then it's unlikely we're going to cross for several weeks. We need to see a substantial pump on that particular currency, and it didn't really look like we really did much. So be careful with the yen, because we are still negative, do note, but it's less negative than where we were. Okay, so slightly bullish, but ideally we'd want it above the zero line. Aussie, take euro off, I guess. And maybe you can look at any permutation, like if you, for example, if you wanted to look at I don't know, maybe Kiwi Swiss. You could look at that, you know, you could look at New Zealand dollar versus the Swiss franc if you wanted to. So we'll look at the Australian dollar, yen and USD. And so the yen is stronger than Aussie, so it's worth noting. And we had a slight increase on Aussie as well, but very subtle, very slight. In fact, that's stronger increase than that, and that was a subtle one. So currently AJ sell, but you know, you've got to remember that China reopening is going to be risk on. It's going to boost the Australian dollar, so we've got to remember that as well. But currently, the yen is just slightly stronger than the Aussie. Take that off. We'll look at the pound, and there isn't any cross. Well, we had a cross, but they're both in ascension, so there isn't anything you'd want to be trading there. If the pound was ticking down, then yeah, then that could be good. But they're both ticking up, so you're not going to get a good GJ trade this week because of that. They're both in ascension, and potentially the dollar, it might continue to decline, but it's going to take a long time before we got the pound USD buy. You know, it's going to take ages and ages, perhaps a couple of months if it continues to fall. But that's a big if, isn't it? After the Fed interest rate decision and after the Powell speech, the chance of a 50 base interest rate hike for the next meeting could increase, and if so, this can pump on the USD. So it all depends on what Powell says. CAD. So we did have a cross, and now that's okay because they did sell the Canadian dollar and they bought the yen. So CAD yen potentially for a sell. So look at some technicals, look at the sentiment for that. Could be a good short. And then we'll take CAD off and we'll look at gold. Gold's strong. And I think we might inevitably come here, there, and I think that's probably what might happen. We have some resistance, so perhaps Potentially one last bullish week. I'm a bit skeptical because we should be zigzagging. We're not really zigzagging on this particular move. There's like no retrace. So I think this week will probably be the last one, and we're going to hit this resistance. But I think we need to probably retrace a little bit like the euro maybe. We've really gone quite extreme on that non-coms. We'll have to wait and see. So I think potentially one last week in gold, and then it should destroy these guys. The retail guys who shorted it. That probably should do the job, but we'll have to wait and see. So I think that could do with a little zigzag coming down a little bit, but we'll have to see. And gold, take that off. Kiwi, I think we're going to go back in this chop again. 3653. Yeah, we're back in that horrible range again on the New Zealand dollar. So it looked like we had a breakout and we'll just come back in again. So we kind of retest. Maybe that's what it's trying to do for a bounce. But we really don't want it in that chop zone again because we didn't do anything for ages, just consolidating. So there's a scenario here where it comes down, tests support, bounces, or it just consolidates and we start to range again on the New Zealand dollar. And take that one off. And then lastly, Swiss franc. Just consolidating there. And we might potentially get a Swiss yen sell signal, but you'd want to wait for the cross first. And even when we get the cross, you'd want to be careful. CAD Gen has crossed, so just check your technicals on that. And if we're below the monthly pivot, the weekly pivot and the daily pivot and things like that, and it's looking fairly bearish, then you can enter. Just remember your risk management, know where your exit is, and you can always retry and reattempt that idea if you get stopped out. But you definitely want to be using stop losses in this market. It's very, very, very horrible, and it can play havoc on your psychology as well. If the trade goes wrong, then you're hoping that it's going to come round, and then your profit. At least with a stop loss, you get rid of the hope component, okay? And if it doesn't go, if it goes against you, then it's going to incur some damage to your account and also to your psychology as well. So stop losses are important, but if you have a size that you're comfortable about being stopped out at, then it's not so painful. But if you've got a large size and your stop is really wide, that's going to do a lot of damage to your psychology and to your account. So try and keep your stops tight if you've got a large size. If you want to have a wide stop, just really reduce your size, and then in that way you'll be more confident and more comfortable. All right, so that wraps it up. Don't forget, don't share it outside the Discord if you can. Just use it for personal use. And don't forget, you can look at any permutation on here as well. So, CAD, Euro maybe. Take that off. Or maybe we'll look at pound, not the real. So you can just look at permutations and then you can get buy or sell signals. So have a great Sunday, and I'll speak to you guys soon.